Welcome in everyone. People are still connecting from the waiting room. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. I'm sure some people will continue to filter in as they're able, but we'll go ahead and get started. My name's Colleen. I lead the programming for the Battery. I am so excited to be kicking off Mental Health Awareness Month, which is all May. This is our first event in a series of 3 that we're doing every Monday for the next 3 weeks, focused on mental health and tools that we can use to work on that and move through some challenging times. This year has been challenging, to say the least, for all of us in many different ways. So I think a collective check-in on this is really important. And we're starting off with a really amazing and really tactical workshop about how to train your brain. I've had the pleasure of working with Sarah Moody personally and professionally for the past year, and it's been a great experience. And when she finished writing her book, Rock Your Brain, Rock Your Life, it just made sense for us to do a workshop. She also did a How to Change Your Life in 30 Days workshop at Sparked, which was our virtual conference this past year. So this is a perfect follow-up in the wake of her book release recently. And joined tonight with Sarah is JD Schramm. He's a Battery CIR and author of Communicate with Mastery. He's going to be moderating the discussion with Sarah, and then we're going to get into a workshop. So without further ado, JD, I'll hand it over to you to set a little bit more context for tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you, and welcome to everybody who's here. We'll invite you, if you're willing, it's not mandatory, but if you're willing, video on, microphone off, that way we can see your smiling faces and keeps you a little less likely to check email or see how your stocks are trading this afternoon at the close of market. But mostly we just want you to be with us and able to engage in the conversation. I am delighted as an advocate for mental health. I am delighted that this is the kickoff program for the month at the Battery. And I get to introduce to you Sarah, and then after she talks for a while, I'm going to pose a few tough questions at her. But let me just tell you a little bit about Sarah Moody, who you're going to hear from this evening. She is a certified coach, serial entrepreneur, and founder of the Rockstar program. She's also a full-on brain nerd with a mission to help badass high achievers of that eliminate doubt and eliminate self-doubt and blow their own minds. Her clients often refer to her fondly as a professional brain trainer with a superhero tool belt of cognitive tools. But when Sarah was 17, she started starving herself after watching her parents go through a devastating divorce and a move to the United States from Jamaica. Anorexia turned into bulimia, and using food felt better than experiencing the pain of her life. It was during this very rough period of time that Sarah discovered both therapy and self-help. She's been a self-help and personal development junkie since then, and she loves cars. So let's just say the analogy she uses is that she was cruising along in third gear with what looked like an amazing life to those of us on the outside, but on the inside, she still struggled with massive self-doubt and feeling unfulfilled. It wasn't until 2019, when she found her coach, Brooke, that she knew she had found the secret to the universe. The world finally, on some level, made sense. And she realized that feeling fulfilled was an inside job. She stopped thinking that if she changed her external circumstances, changed her romantic partner, went on an amazing vacation, made more money, that all of that would finally make her feel fulfilled. She quickly got into 7th gear, and the rest is history. Sarah teaches that all it takes is an understanding the relationship between your thoughts and your results. And now she wants everyone to be able to have these cognitive tools, because basically badass folks are the ones who save the world. With one simple tool that she'll teach us tonight, she was able to launch her coaching company, start her podcast, write her book, both called Rock Your Brain, Rock Your Life, and did all of that in the midst of a global pandemic. while some of us were just trying to figure out how to bake bread. She also has a company where she advises the C-suite in tech companies on how to build amazing customer advisory boards. Sarah's helped so many people create a life they love using one of the most powerful tools in the world, the brain. She has created a thriving multiple six-figure business and only works 4 days a week. So fasten your seatbelts to keep that car analogy going. If you're ready to learn one simple tool to daily use to train your brain so you can change your thoughts and be accountable to your biggest and smallest goals and love your life, let's get ready and take off. Sarah, I will turn it over to you.
JD, thank you so much for the introduction and welcome everyone. I'm so happy to be with you all this evening at the start of Mental Health Awareness Month. And you're going to learn one simple tool, as JD just shared. So tell us in the chat where you're from, what you want to make sure that you kind of like learn or would like to have in your life that you don't already have. And I love understanding how people are feeling. So drop how you're feeling right now in the chat as well. And drop any questions in the chat. We're going to make this super conversational. We're going to kind of go through a couple of lessons and teachings, and then we're going to dive into a workbook. All this content, the slides and the workbook are in your chat. All right, let's dive in.
Sarah, you muted yourself by mistake.
I did. Okay. Okay.
Which is
all right.
a great chance for us to just say, let's start again.
Let's start again. Okay, awesome. All right, so here is my thesis. My thesis is that every single thought in your brain is going to end up as a result in your life, whether it's money, your career, your partner, whether you like them or not, it's all about your thinking. And one of my favorite teachers is Carol Dweck at Stanford, who wrote the book all about your growth mindset and like the power of success. And one of the things that I love about what she wrote is that to have a growth mindset is to believe that you can grow and evolve yourself, like grow your belief in yourself and do amazing things with your life. But what she also says is that you need like a tool or something that you can use to help yourself grow. And I'm going to share this one tool with you that I've used on myself that you can use to train your brain. So, all right. So here's some science for y'all. In that amazing brain of yours, you have about 60,000 thoughts running through your brain every single day. Most of them are negative, and most of them are on spin cycle repeating. So if you wonder why some days you're walking around feeling like shit, feeling overwhelmed, self-doubt, uncertainty, worried, all the things, here's your data, y'all. This is a National Science Foundation research that was done. So, all right, next slide. Let's see. Okay, so here's a little bit. Okay, so when I started doing this work last year, I just became fascinated with the brain, but I wanted to make it really simple to understand. So you all have seen like an image of a brain, right? So think of that image of the brain. And what I did was I just divided it into like two sections. One section is the primitive brain or the reptilian brain or the lizard brain. You probably heard all of those words used interchangeably for half of your brain. And the other half of your brain is your prefrontal cortex. And so what I did was looking at the fact that all of your thoughts are going to end up as your results. What I did was I said, okay, so if your brain comes up with some unintentional negative thoughts, it's probably coming from your primitive brain. And I called him the puppy because he's thinking about short-term results in his life, easy street, pleasure, all the things, not goals, not doing any hard things, okay? And then the other side of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, I call that the CEO brain. So that's where your long-term deepest desires reside. So all those goals and dreams you have, like all those reside in your prefrontal cortex or your CEO brain, okay? So you've got two sides of your brain every single day that are vying for control, okay? I used to live pretty much all the time in like my little primitive brain, thinking about pleasure and easy street and kind of staying safe. And so that is why I felt so unfulfilled for so long. And it was hard for me to achieve my goals and dreams. Understanding how the brain works and using this one tool I'm going to teach you tonight is how I was able to get more into my long term deepest desires, start this coaching company, write a book, and do all the things. Okay, so let's dive into how to train your brain. This is the one tool. Okay. So, step one in how to train your brain, and this is what you're going to do in your workbook that's in your chat right now. Actually, you're going to do it in a little bit. I'm going to go through this a little bit first. So, step one is you're going to take all your thoughts. Remember, I just covered the fact that we've got about 60,000 thoughts in our brain. You're going to take all your thoughts that you're having about an area of your life where you feel stress. Where do you want to change something in your life? Or what new result do you want to create? Maybe you want to write a book. Maybe you want to start a podcast. Maybe you want to lose 5 pounds. Where's your stress and what new results you want to create in your life? So you're going to do a thought download about what you're feeling stressed about. I'm going to give you an example. I work with a lot of folks in tech, and I was working with a bunch of sales folks at Okta, and I gave them the prompts on the left, and everyone was super stressed, of course, about work and their career. So right now I'm giving you an example of a thought download that one of my students did about work. They're in sales. So the thoughts look like, I'm so worried I won't meet my quota. I don't have enough territory to meet my quota. I wish I was smart enough to find more leads. My quota is too high. My manager sucks. My daily quota is 100 calls, which absolutely blows. So here are all the thoughts they took out of their brain about the fact that they were totally stressed about work and the end of quarter. So that's always step one. And by the way, y'all, like your brain's probably going to want to think, oh, let me just do this in my brain. No, we take all the thoughts out of our brain and we put them down on a piece of paper or type them up in Google, but take them out of your brain. Step one. Okay, step two. Step two is our brain is really tricky, and we walk around thinking that most of those 60,000 thoughts that are running around in our brain are actually facts. But I'm here to tell you, y'all, most of them are stories that our brain is making up. They're like fiction. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to highlight the facts that are in that thought download. Facts stand up in a court of law and are something that everyone can agree upon. So remember that thought download that we just went over about the career stuff. Here are all of the thoughts, and the fact in this thought download is 100 calls. That is the only fact in this download. All the other things are just thoughts. Everything else is a thought, because you might have a different thought about a quota of 100 calls. I might have a different thought about a quota of 100 calls. JD might have a third totally different thought about 100 calls. So everyone is going to have a different thought about this fact of 100 calls, okay? So that's what a fact is. So here's the tool. It's called a Framewc. So this is the tool that I use and all of my students use every day to train their brain. And what I love about it is, first of all, it's called a Framewc. So it's like really easy for us all to understand. You're like, okay, I understand a Framewc. And it's got 5 things that already exist in the universe, okay? So a fact is a neutral sentence that will stand up in a court of law. So 100 calls, like that's something that's on that person's goal sheet. Everyone knows that it's there. There's nothing that's not neutral about 100 calls, as example. The thought, that's the next piece of the Framewc, is what's the thought that you're having about that fact? So we had a bunch of different thoughts that we saw in that download that person had about the fact of 100 calls, right? And then when your brain has that thought about the fact of 100 calls, how do you feel, right? And so then you're going to write the feeling down. And when you have that feeling, what do you do or not do when you experience that feeling in your body? And then the result is always the final step, which is what is the result to you of what you do or don't do when you experience that feeling? So let's go through an example. So we saw that the fact in that thought download was the daily call quota of 100 calls, okay? The thought that my student has was, I don't have enough territory to meet my quota. The feeling in their body was worried. And when they feel worried, what they do and don't do is they spin in a thought feeling loop of worry. They organize their desk, they surf social media, they shop Amazon. They're spending all this time doing all this other stuff, right? And they make 80 calls because their brain is totally distracted doing all this other bullshit. What's the result to them? They don't meet their daily call goal, right? So this is an example of unintentional thinking that is not going to create the result that you want in your life, right? So this is the unintentional framework. The next step is, okay, being under your brain's bullshit and looking at what are you open to believing, right? If your fact is still the daily call quota of 100 calls, is there like an opener thought? Is there a thought that you're willing to consider, right? So like one thought that this person came up with was like, I'm open to believing I have enough territory to like do this number. And when they had this thought that they were open to believing or seeking evidence or, you know, willing to try, they felt a little bit more open and they felt a little bit more curious. And who doesn't love feeling curious? Because when you're curious, you're going to like fire up LinkedIn, you're going to go do some research, you're going to like, you know, call that agency that's going to help you find leads. You're going to like practice feeling curious and put your brain to work, right? And pull in all your resources. And guess what? The student actually did, after some work, meet their daily call goal of 100. So they were able to like show up for themselves and their world of work. So now what I'm going to do is I've actually got a couple of students on the call with me. So what I want to do is I want to go back through and give you a couple of examples where they're going to show you their thought download. They're going to go through their unintentional framework and their intentional framework. So the framework's the one tool, and they're going to go through an example. And then we're going to walk through the workbooks, but I want you to have a few more examples. Okay, Gabby, let's start with you.
Sarah, before you get to the two examples, there was one question that I think would be good to answer before the examples.
Love it.
Someone asked, is a fact always a stressor? In your framework, when something comes forward as a fact, do we always categorize that as a stressor?
Excellent question. The only stressor in our life are our thoughts. Facts are completely neutral. COVID is a fact. 100 calls is a fact. My partner is a fact. The only time we ever have a problem, which is so freeing, y'all, is when we have a thought about that fact. And what I want to offer to you, because all of my work is grounded in cognitive behavioral therapy, is every thought in your brain is optional. So if it's not serving you in your life, like serving you around that goal quota, serving you about like around your romantic relationship, then it's unintentional thinking, and it's probably coming from your primitive brain, and that's something to look at. I hope that answered your question.
Great. Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. Just keep the questions coming too.
Yeah, definitely. Feel free to individually write me any questions you want to get asked in the second half.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, Gabby.
Cool. Hi, everybody. I'm Gabby. Just for some context, I'm an artist and I'm an emerging artist, so I'm very new to my art business. So my a constant thing I have, thought drama going on in my head, is worries about if I'm going to be successful or not. So a pretty common fact line for me would be art business. A thought I often have is, I'm not selling enough art. I'm never going to be successful. And when I have this thought, I feel fear. I feel fear of failure. I feel anxious. I feel self-doubt. Like, can I really do this? Am I good enough? And it totally spirals. And when I have thoughts like that, I am so much less likely to want to sit down and create. I feel non-committal about things on my to-do list. I don't want to create art at all because I feel afraid and I just want to ignore it. And so at the end of the day, the result of those types of thoughts are that I'm almost failing in advance, right? If I'm not jumping in to create my best work every day, like, it's probably a lot less likely that I'm going to be successful. So when I realize I'm having thoughts like this and I'm like, I don't have time for this, this needs to get out of my head. My intentional framework, right? Same fact line, art business. I change my thought to, I am learning to believe that I am successful as soon as I create work that I believe in. And one of the things I really like about this is, one of the amazing things that Sarah teaches is, the reason that I want to be successful is so that I can feel proud and confident and, like I have fulfilled some of my purpose, right? But there is no reason that I can't feel that right now, because those feelings come from thoughts, and success is something that I get to define within myself. So by shifting what success means in my brain, I am able to create this thought that serves me a lot better. And I'll read you this thought one more time. My replacement thought is, I am learning to believe that I am successful as soon as I create work that I believe in. And I think another important thing about this thought is, another one of the things that Sarah teaches is that I am learning, right? Because my brain isn't necessarily ready to all of a sudden be like, oh yeah, I'm successful, I feel amazing now. I kind of need to convince myself and step into it a little bit. And so this is kind of like tier 1 of changing this thought. When I think this thought, when I write it down, I feel empowered and I feel proud and confident. I feel empowered because I'm like, oh, I know I can create work. I know what I believe in. Like, that's easy. Check. Like, I'm already successful. And when I have those positive feelings, it makes me want to sit down and jump into doing what I love. And at the end of the day, the result of this is that I am more motivated and more empowered to believe in what I'm doing and create my best work. And if I'm ever going to be, quote unquote, successful, right, and sell tons of art, it's going to be because I'm making the best art that I possibly could. So, yeah.
Gabby, that was awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that.
You bet.
Does anyone have any questions before we jump in? Okay, Laura, I need you to share the workbook, please. Can you share the workbook? Because I am not finding it in the chat. Maybe if I scroll up, it will be there.
Sarah, do you want it in the chat or you want to screen share it?
Can you drop it in the chat for me? Thank you. It's probably somewhere up there that I will not be able to find. So yeah, just drop it in the chat. That'd be great. But everyone should have it. So fire up the workbook and we're going to dive in right now. Okay. All right. The workbook, let me just fire this up and let me share my screen again. Oh, I'm sharing, right? Am I sharing? Yes.
You're not yet sharing.
Okay, hold on one second. Share. There we go. Great.
Now you are.
Okay, awesome. Okay, not that one. One quick second. Let me just go back here. Hold on a second. Okay, here we go. Oh, all right. Okay. The workbook. Here we go. All right. So what we're going to do next is this is all a fillable workbook. And so what I want you to see is you're going to use the Framewc tool. And the goal here is to demonstrate to your brain how your thoughts will always equal your results. You saw an example from Gabby and an example from one of my other students. And that the strategic byproduct of you using this tool is you're going to start seeing your brain's bullshit like every time you use it. You're going to separate the facts from the thoughts, which are always stories. And you're going to go all in on you and start believing truly that anything is possible. I'm not a special unicorn. Like all of us have amazing, incredible like powers and unique gifts. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to do a thought download. So you're going to think about a part of your life where you're struggling, you're stressed, you're dying to change. You know, maybe it's exercise, and you're going to do a thought download for 5 minutes about this part of your life. So take all the thoughts out of your brain, type them down. And if you run out of thoughts, ask yourself, you know, what else? What do I think about myself? What do I think about the facts? What do I think about the people related to the facts? And just type away for like, let's do it for like 4 minutes. So that's step one. Okay, step two is pick any thought out of that thought download, okay? There's no right or wrong thought here. And if you have a feeling in your thought, definitely put the feeling in the feeling line. So I want you to complete the unintentional framework, and you've got an example in the slide deck. And then I want you to think like, what's a believable thought that you can use to create your intentional framework, okay? Like I'm open to believing, I'm seeking evidence that I can, I'm learning to, it's possible. Remember Gabby's opener kind of thought. So definitely fill out one thought framework. I've given you 2 worksheets. If you've got enough time, definitely do 2 and just start training your brain this way. So why don't we take the next, let's take the next like 12 minutes and go through and start doing the workbook. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to raise your hand, drop them in the chat, and just put my timer on and let me know if you have questions.
I will just offer that some people may need to download the workbook before it's fillable. So if you're trying to do it from just a web version of it, download it and then open what you downloaded, and it's a great tool.
Thanks, JD. Okay, how was that training your brain exercise? What did you love? What was difficult? Anyone want to raise their hand and tell me? Gabby, we could start with you if you wanted to share another example, or is there someone else who wants to share? Why don't we start with Gabby? You want to give us another example, Gabby?
Yeah, I'm happy to share another example. I also was just thinking about how I remember when I first did my first ever thought download, and I was totally new to it. I remember that my brain had a ton of just like judgment of what I was doing, like, oh, like that was a dumb thought, or like, I don't know if I'm doing this thought download right, like a bunch of that kind of drama. So just if anyone out there relates to that, like you can do a thought download on your brain resisting the thought download. It's a little meta, but it probably would work. Anyway, let's see. I've got another example. So like I mentioned, I'm an artist. I do a lot of my business on Instagram, and have a lot of thought drama about Instagram. So fact, activism on Instagram. Thought, I don't want to get negative feedback. I'm overwhelmed by the potential that someone won't agree with me. What if it hurts my business? I'm so worried about standing up for what I believe in. Feeling self-doubt, fear of, I don't know, haters, people not agreeing with you. Instagram is a scary place. Action. I worry about the potential negative feelings of shame or embarrassment if someone disagrees with my post, if it isn't received well, of maybe saying something that's not perfectly researched? Like, what if I'm wrong? Like, I'm trying to stand up for something and I don't say it perfectly. A lot of fear. And the results are that I get totally stalled out by this fear and I probably say nothing at all, which really isn't doing anyone any good because I'm not learning more and I'm not a voice that's standing up for what I believe is good. So I'm going to flip this thought around, and the fact is still activism on Instagram. But my thought is that even though I feel unsure, I believe in my reasons and I am open to not being perfect and learning along the way. And for me, when I really remember what my reasons are, it helps me like get grounded and push the fear of what other people think to the side. So when I have this thought, even though I feel unsure about this, I believe in my reasons and I'm open to not being perfect and learning along the way. The feeling I have is almost like, I like to say supported. I don't know if that makes sense, but also just like strong and grounded. And when I say supported, I mean that I'm supporting myself, right? So it doesn't really matter what other people say. And my actions are then going to be like, okay, I have reasons that I want to say this thing. So I'm going to research it really well. I'm going to create really good content and I'm going to put it out there. And so my actions are all along those lines, researching and essentially just setting myself up to like present the best possible thing that I could. And the results are that I both present the best content that I could, stand up for something that I believe in, and then also probably learn. I think in a lot of contexts, at least I find when I show up for myself, I feel a lot more comfortable to like take criticism. Maybe I say something that like someone's more informed than me, and they're like, "Hey, Gabrielle, like this actually is what I think is going on," and then I can learn more about that. So not only am I standing up for something, but I also am expanding my knowledge of that.
Thanks for sharing, Gabby. That was awesome.
You bet.
Great. Yeah. Anyone else have any other? Okay, JD, let's just dive into the next section.
I want to be sure if there was anybody else who had questions about the activity before we get off of that we give you time to ask those. So feel free to just unmute and speak up.
Yeah.
If not, this is the point in the wedding ceremony where they say forever hold your peace. Okay. So Sarah, I have really enjoyed your book. In fact, I did the digital version of the book, so I can't hold up the paperback and say, flip through this, but I finished it this morning at Phil's. And I know that it is just recently out, but as you look at the way that people who've not had the benefit that Gabby and Laura have to be one of your students, as you look at how people have approached the book and benefited from the book as truly self-help or self-paced help, what do you think has been the best element? Like, what's the part of it that you would want people to really be drawn to, and what's made it the hardest? What's been the biggest challenge now that the book is out there in the universe?
Yeah, I'd say that the two kind of sweet tools that everyone walks away with is, oh my God, like 99% of my thoughts are complete bullshit and stories that my brain is serving up. So it's that separating out of the facts and what can stand up in a court of law that's neutral, like COVID, and what's the brain bullshit. That's been probably like the biggest aha moment when people read my book. Because once you see that your thoughts, most of them are bullshit, and that every thought in your brain is optional, it's just a sentence in your brain. That's like the second piece of like, well, if it's just a sentence and here's my brain over here, and I get to choose my sentences that go in my brain that serve me in my life, like that's been the other aha moment for folks that have read my book. They've loved, because we have grown up thinking that, our thoughts are facts.
Yes.
So when you separate them out, you're like, no, it's mostly bullshit up there.
And I love the part of the framework where you talk about, first of all thoughts are optional. And then secondly, it's our feelings that then drive all the actions.
Yes.
And
what I love about that, JD, exactly, is all you have to do is look at the advertising industry, which is like a, I don't know, $800 billion trillion industry, right? That industry is all about like creating feelings in our body so that we go do something, buy something, right? So the minute you know that, you're like, wow, there's so much power in understanding how I feel. Back to what Gabby said, like we can decide right now to feel peaceful and powerful and think about what kind of actions you're going to take from that place. So understanding your feelings is so important. And that's another skill. Like we're not taught how to feel our feelings as humans. That's not a course in school, right? So
yeah.
That's another part of the work that I do as a coach. Yeah.
I love the pairing of those two together. But I particularly the concept of thoughts are optional. In the rooms of recovery, what I often have heard people say is, I'm not responsible for my first thought, but I am for my second thought.
Yes.
Or at a more vivid level, it's not my fault if a bird lands on my head, but if I let it build a nest up there, I got to take some responsibility, And
exactly.
And so I really was put up by that.
Yeah.
The exercise you just had us do, and it was abbreviated for the sake of fitting into the 1 hour format that we have, but that whole idea of getting, vomiting those thoughts out of our head reminded me of the morning pages that Julie Cameron advocates in The Artist's Way, which Gabby may be familiar with. Is that part of what you're building on with that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I read that book about 6 or 7 years ago, and I love what she had us do every morning, where we just had to write, what was it, 3 pages?
Yeah, 3 pages every morning.
3 full pages every morning before you even had your coffee. Right, exactly. So it's like, this is the cool thing, is she, and kind of what, like the part of the tool that I teach, it's you becoming a third party witness and observer to what's going on in your brain, right? She had us put it down on paper. You put it down on paper, and you're like, wow, okay, is this thought serving me in my art business? Is this thought serving me in my coaching business? So yeah, it's a really similar tool. And putting it down on paper, like, that's the critical thing. You can't do it in your brain.
Yeah.
Can't do the morning pages in your brain.
One of the the think method of morning pages.
Exactly.
Put a few metaphors together there. I want to go to a little more serious point here. Somebody posed to me individually the question, I have a friend that's going through a very difficult divorce. She needs help reinventing, but is stuck inside of a negative thought pattern. She's having trouble moving forward positively in the areas where she can control. How would you handle a situation like this in your coaching practice, Sarah?
Yeah. You said she's getting a divorce?
Yes, going through a difficult divorce, needs help reinventing herself, but is kind of stuck in a negative pattern in the midst of the divorce.
What's the negative thought? Just give me that one negative thought. Is it like, I don't want to get divorced? Like what's the negative thought?
It wasn't provided to me from the person who posed the question, but I will insert into that, life's over. I'm just, I'm at 50, I'm doing this. What remains? It's not worth it.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So that type of thinking of like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm getting a divorce. This sucks. This is terrible, is only going to create feelings in her body of feeling like a victim and feeling stuck and all the things about this circumstance, right? And so the first thing that I would encourage her to do is just feel the feelings of loss and change, and that it sounds like she doesn't want to get a divorce, and so just feeling the loss first, like that's most important. versus resisting, right? So accepting what is, sounds like maybe her husband wants to get a divorce, like accepting what is, feeling the feelings of loss and sadness. And then also too, understanding that she's not a victim. Like she can decide what to make this circumstance mean. And what I encourage all my students to do is what thought is going to serve you in your life. If you have a thought about a divorce that says, this is terrible, I can't believe he's doing this, I hate him, and all these kind of negative thoughts, you're going to feel stuck and like a victim. But if you look at like, where's the learning, where's the opportunity, where's the intentional thinking that's going to help me show up for my life and help me kind of move forward, like, you know what, this sucks and I feel really sad, but I'm open to believing that I can create a beautiful life in this next chapter and that this is happening for me.
Yeah. I like everything you said, and I particularly like that you drilled back a bit, that for you to truly answer this question, you need to have a conversation with the person who's having that challenge, that they individually name what that is. For me to guess secondhand and you to then advise, it's instructive, but you were very clear about know what you're feeling, feel the feelings, and name the feelings. And that's got to be a very specific individual journey. The way I'm processing my job loss, let's take it away from divorce, is not the way somebody else is going to process a job loss. And so feeling the feelings and naming them, I really picked up on that in your answer.
Yeah.
Okay. One more light question, one more heavy question. Light question.
Great.
You say you like sports cars. You go from third gear to seventh gear. What the hell happened to 4, 5, and 6?
Well, JD, I found the framework that I taught you all tonight. And so I literally, y'all, was going along in like third gear in my life, like feeling a little unfulfilled in therapy, like, oh, what's going on here? And then when I found the framework and I started training my brain, because I love cars and I've done 17 vintage car rallies, I was like, oh my God. Like now I look at all my brain's bullshit. I look at the facts. I, last year, like did 50% more of my revenue. JD shared with you all the different things that I started last year, all because I know how to train my brain. And I use that tool every morning for 10 minutes. It's like going to the gym. That's what I do. So yeah. That's how I got to seventh gear.
And then finally, we are almost out of time before Colleen kicks us out and reshapes the Zoom room into its next event. If there's one nugget you really want us to walk away with about your methodology or about your framework, what's the one piece you want us to internalize and hold on to tonight, Sarah?
Yeah. So if I could leave you with one thing, y'all, like this brain of yours is the most powerful thing you have in the world. It's 3 pounds. And everything you do in your life, every result you have in your life or don't have, is all caused by your thinking. This is cognitive therapy 101. And when you train your brain using cognitive tools, you can create any result you want in your life. And how I like to think about my brain is I put my brain to work every day to think strategically to create value in the universe. If I'm creating value in the universe, guess what happens after that? Then I thankfully have money, and then I have time, and then I have amazing relationships. And then I go out and do whatever I want to do with my life, like build amazing cognitive tools that my students can use to go transform their lives. So investing in your brain, to me, is the secret to an incredible life. And you all, I am not a special little unicorn, snowflake, whatever. Like JD shared my story. Like I just use the framework every day, do the thought download, and get busy doing hard things and believing in myself. And so that is what I would wish for you. Invest in your brain with cognitive tools, believe in your badass self, go out there and do amazing things in the world that I know you all want to go do. And I'm just so grateful that you're all here tonight as well. So yeah, I want to leave you with that.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Sarah, thank you so much for the contribution to all of us this evening, and the contribution of taking your framework and your thought process, putting it into a book. I encourage people to check out the book, check out the podcast, Rock Your Brain, Rock Your Life, by Sarah Moody. And Colleen dropped a quick evaluation. If you can just take 60 seconds, if even that, let us know your feelings about tonight. And we look forward to you being with us a week from tonight for part 2 in this series. Colleen, anything else for the good of the order?
No, thank you both so much. That was such an awesome experience to go through that framework and to learn that tool. We'll drop a link to Sarah's book, and we'll send this recording along with the tools that she shared tonight in an email tomorrow. And look out for more updates on the other mental health programming coming up and on our website. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Member Events. And if you want to connect with Sarah, we will drop her email in there and we can always connect you. Forgot to mention, Sarah's a fellow Battery member and a Battery ambassador. So we're keeping it in the family tonight. So look forward to seeing you all soon. Sarah, thank you
Yes.
for the book. JD, thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for showing up, and have an awesome rest of your evening. Okay, bye.
Good night, all.
Everyone.
Good night.